Shalom to the elect of Israel, to the hopeful elect of Israel. You Hebrew Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, West Indians, and Haitians. Got to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, the Most High, the Heavenly Father. His name is Yahweh, not Yahweh, not Jehovah, not Allah, not God, not Elohim, not Ahia. It's Yahweh. His only begotten son name is Yahweh Shai, not Yahshua, not Yeshua, not Jesus Christos, not Jesus Christ, not Serapis Christus, not Yeshaya. It's Yahweh Shai. So gotta give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rikah, Qurash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, who rule well, who teach well, and a sincere salutation to all the occupants pushing this truth and believing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hopeful elect. And shalom to the Akwaf who are listening and learning, the few sisters who are listening and learning. And Messiah from the GMS Orlando account, coming at you another lesson in true fact, faith, and edification, another daily edification, Lord willing, this be edifying. And this is about this disease that's getting out of hand. Hey, if you're not covered by the Heavenly Father Yahweh, you will die a grievous death. Lord's willing, this be edifying.
Why don't you describe for me, as vividly as you can, what it is you're worried about, what it is that the nightmare scenario looks like?
Fortunately, there's very few things, and most of them are very low probability. Some big volcanic explosion, gigantic earthquake, asteroid. But at least in the nuclear case, you've got to say we take it quite seriously. We budget a lot of money, have a lot of people who think about nuclear deterrence, and I'm very glad that work's being done, and I rate the chance of a nuclear war in my lifetime as being fairly low. I rate the chance of a widespread epidemic far worse than Ebola in my lifetime is well over 50%. If we look at the 20th century and we look at the death chart of the 20th century, I think everybody would say, oh yeah, there must be a spike for World War I. Sure enough, there it is, like 25 million. And there must be a big spike for World War II, and there it is, it's like 65 million. But then you'll see this other spike that is as large as World War II right after World War I. And most people, a lot of people would say, well, what? What was that? There's two kinds of flus. There's flus that spread between humans very effectively, and there's flus that kill lots of people. And those two properties have only been combined into a widespread flu once in history. Well, that is Spanish flu. We have no idea where it came from. It's called the Spanish flu because the Spanish press was the freest. They were the first to talk openly about it. And so in the annals of epidemic history, that's the big event. I funded a disease modeling group that uses computer simulation, and that work has been phenomenal in helping us target our polio eradication resources and which parts of Nigeria should we work harder on. And it's very natural, if you have a group like that, to say, hey, look at something like a Spanish flu in the modern day. Health systems are far better. And so you think, hey, that wouldn't be very bad. Well, we tried it, and there are some assumptions we had to make. But what we showed is that the force of infection because of modern transport, which compared to 1918 is over 50 times as great. And so if you get something like a flu, and you look at that map of how within days it's basically in all urban centers of the entire globe, that is very eye-opening. That didn't happen with Spanish flu in the past. The opportunity to do more than just let it run its course is really only in the last decade. Basically, when you talk about drugs, you can talk about small molecules or talk about these complex biological protein-like things, of which there's a subclass called antibodies. Antibodies are the molecules that the immune system naturally builds to attack disease. Today, the idea that somebody says, oh, here's an antibody, make a lot of it, make it very quickly, that's right on the cutting edge. And the Ebola epidemic showed me that we're not ready for a serious epidemic. An epidemic that would be more infectious and would spread faster than Ebola did. This is the greatest risk of a huge tragedy. This is the most likely thing by far to kill over 10 million excess people in a year. We don't need to invest nearly what we do in military preparedness. This is something where less than $1 billion a year on R&D, medical surveillance, standby personnel, cross-training the military so they can play a role in terms of all the logistics here. This can be done, and we may not get many more warnings like this one to say, okay, it's a pretty modest investment to avoid something that really, in terms of the human condition, would be a gigantic setback.
And since he mentioned that, let's go to this.
The 1918 flu epidemic, also known as the Great Flu Epidemic or the Spanish flu, is considered the worst global pandemic in history, as it concentrated a high mortality in a short period of time. It's estimated that the mortality rate of the pandemic was between 10 and 20%, and that it killed between 50 and 100 million people worldwide. In Spain, the number of deaths is estimated at around 300,000. Unlike other flu epidemics that primarily affect children and the elderly, many of its victims were healthy young people and adults in their 20s and 40s, as well as animals, such as dogs and cats. The flu began to spread at the end of World War I. The media in the countries that participated in the war were under military censorship, so they concealed the pandemic. However, Spain, being neutral, reported in the press on the new cases using names such as the fever of 3 days, the soldier of Naples, or the fashionable disease. It seemed that Spain was the only country affected. This is why the disease was known all over the world as the Spanish flu. Although by the fall of 1917, the disease had already occurred in 14 military camps, some consider Gilbert Mitchell, a cook at Fort Riley Camp in Kansas, to be a zero patient. Mitchell entered the morning of March 4th, 1918, with fever and headache to the infirmary, and a few hours later there were more than 100 cases under treatment. So they'd set up a hangar to care for patients. The symptoms of this disease were high fever, earache, body fatigue, diarrhea, and occasional vomiting, and sometimes breathing difficulties and nosebleeds. Most of the people who died were the result of secondary bacterial pneumonia, as antibiotics were not available. However, one group died quickly after the first symptoms appeared, in as little as 2 or 3 days. By mid-April 1918, the flu was already raging in the trenches of Western Europe. It passed from France to Great Britain, Italy, and came to Spain. Even King Alfonso XIII became ill, and the Spanish newspapers echoed the disease, which was spreading so alarmingly. As can be seen in this graph, most fatalities fell in just 13 weeks, from September to mid-December 1918, in what's known as the second wave. The poorest people and populations suffered the consequences of this flu in a special way, but it also affected governors such as the President of the United States, Woodrow Wilson, the British Prime Minister Lloyd George, or Kaiser Guillermo. The painter Edvard Munch even captured it in a self-portrait, and others like Gustav Klimt did not survive the disease. All the newspapers of the moment collected advertisements with miraculous remedies. The elixirs, medicinal waters, tonics, and other remedies stand out. Doctors at the time recommended aspirin, in doses now considered counterproductive, quinine, prepared with arsenic, camphor oil, or castor oil. Some even encouraged people to smoke, thinking that inhaling smoke killed germs. Different medical publications of the time, available in the Hispanic Digital Library, attempted to respond to the causes of the epidemic and reported on its progress and consequences. An Italian scientist, Professor Sacconi, claimed to have isolated the germ that caused the disease, but time proved it was not true. The strain of the virus causing Spanish flu, AH1N1, was not discovered until 1943, and its genetic sequence was not determined until 2005. Every day, Spanish newspapers picked up on the importance of hygiene education and how this task was carried out in Germany from schools and pupils, making the number of flu deaths before the war the lowest in all of Europe. They also warn that patients who do not experience any symptoms, the so-called convalescents, can be a focus of spread of the epidemic, so they recommended keeping them 1 or 2 weeks more in isolation. The use of cloth masks became mandatory for all those performing public service work. This measure was a health recommendation made to the rest of the population to prevent the disease from spreading so easily. The more contact there was between people, the more likely they were to reproduce the virus. The government is beginning to take preventative measures to try and stop this crisis. Theatres, circuses, workshops, factories and public places are disinfected, and some events are even suspended. It's forbidden to import goods from Morocco. Strangers entering populations are identified. Tuition and examinations are extended indefinitely, and rectors are even given the freedom to suspend classes if they see fit. The third and last wave was more benign, as many people were already immunized, giving the pandemic under control in the spring of 1919. And the disease ended on its own. By the summer of 1920, the virus had disappeared. While he won the battle against the weakest, the rest were immunized.
When I was a kid, the disaster we worried about most was a nuclear war. That's why we had a barrel like this down in our basement, filled with cans of food and water. When the nuclear attack came, we were supposed to go downstairs, hunker down, and eat out of that barrel. Today, the greatest risk of global catastrophe doesn't look like this. Instead, it looks like this. If anything kills over 10 million people in the next few decades, it's most likely to be a highly infectious virus rather than a war. not missiles, but microbes. Now, part of the reason for this is that we have invested a huge amount in nuclear deterrence, but we've actually invested very little in a system to stop an epidemic. We're not ready for the next epidemic. Let's look at Ebola. I'm sure all of you read about it in the newspaper. Lots of tough challenges. I followed it carefully through the case analysis tools we use to track polio eradication.
Well, we know that the Lord got the nations putting their money into warfare, into nuclear capability. Okay? Spending more money in the ICBMs.
And as you look at what went on, the problem wasn't that there was a system that didn't work well enough. The problem was that we didn't have a system at all. In fact, there are some pretty obvious key missing pieces. We didn't have a group of epidemiologists ready to go who would have gone, seen what the disease was, see how far it had spread. The case reports came in on paper. It was very delayed before they were put online, and they were extremely inaccurate. We didn't have a medical team ready to go. We didn't have a way of preparing people. Now, Médecins Sans Frontières did a great job orchestrating volunteers, but even so, we were far slower than we should have been getting the thousands of workers into these countries. And a large epidemic would require us to have hundreds of thousands of workers. There was no one there to look at treatment approaches, no one to look at the diagnostics, no one to figure out what tools should be used. As an example, we could have taken the blood of survivors, processed it, and put that plasma back in people to protect them, but that was never tried. So there was a lot that was missing, and these things are really a global failure. The WHO is funded to monitor epidemics, but not to do these things I talked about. Now, in the movies, it's quite different. There's a group of handsome epidemiologists ready to go. They move in, they save the day, but that's just pure Hollywood. The failure to prepare could allow the next epidemic to be dramatically more devastating than Ebola. Let's look at the progression of Ebola over this year. About 10,000 people died, and nearly all were in the 3 West African countries. There's 3 reasons why it didn't spread more. The first is there was a lot of heroic work by the health workers. They found the people and they prevented more infections. The second is the nature of the virus. Ebola does not spread through the air. And by the time you're contagious, most people are so sick that they're bedridden. Third, it didn't get into many urban areas, and that was just luck. If it had gotten into a lot more urban areas, the case numbers would have been much larger. So next time, we might not be so lucky. You can have a virus where people feel well enough while they're infectious that they...
You said it didn't get into urban areas. Well, you know what? Deuteronomy 30:7. Okay? But as I'm going to go into, the Lord is finna judge 2/3 of Israel. I want to finish these videos before I start my precepts.
They get on a plane or they go to a market. The source of the virus could be a natural epidemic like Ebola, or it could be bioterrorism. And so there are things that would literally make things 1,000 times worse. In fact, let's look at a model of a virus spread through the air like the Spanish flu back in 1918. So here's what would happen. It would spread throughout the world very, very quickly. And you can see there's over 30 million people die from that epidemic. So this is a serious problem. We should be concerned. But in fact,
Now, if you just seen that, you noticed that they showed you the 33 million people that could die from this new disease, right? Show you how slick they is, man. it's a reason why I'm playing these videos in this order. Cause I'm finna hit these these new updates on the coronavirus, man. Okay, so they already know because why they controls every disease that hit planet Earth, man. Every disease that get emerged comes from the CDC, man, and WHO.
Very, very quickly. And you can see there's over 30 million people die from that epidemic. So this is a serious problem. We should be concerned. But in fact, we can build a really good response system. We have the benefits of all the science and technology that we talk about here. We've got cell phones to get information from the public and get information out to them. We have satellite maps where we can see where people are and where they're moving. We have advances in biology that should dramatically change the turnaround time to look at a pathogen and be able to make drugs and vaccines that fit for that pathogen. So we can have tools, but those tools need to be put into an overall global health system, and we need preparedness. The best lessons, I think, on how to get prepared are, again, what we do for war. For soldiers, we have full-time waiting to go. We have reserves that can scale us up to large numbers. NATO has a mobile unit that can deploy very rapidly. NATO does a lot of war games to check, are people well trained? Do they understand about fuel and logistics and the same radio frequencies? So they are absolutely ready to go. So those are the kinds of things we need to deal with an epidemic. What are the key pieces? First is we need strong health systems in poor countries. That's where mothers can give birth safely, kids can get all their vaccines, but also where we'll see the outbreak very early on.
You see, they always talking about vaccines, man. Always talking about vaccines. To do what? To kill you Negro, Latinos, and Native Americans, man.
We need a medical reserve corps. Lots of people who've got the training and background who are ready to go with the expertise. And then we need to pair those medical people with the military, taking advantage of the military's ability to move fast, do logistics, and secure areas. We need to do simulations, germ games, not war games, so that we see where the holes are. The last time a germ game was done in the United States was back in 2001, and it didn't go so well.
Now, this video of Bill Gates is titled, Bill Gates, The Next Outbreak, We're Not Ready. And this was April the 3rd, 2015.
So far, the score is germs 1, people 0. Finally, we need lots of advanced R&D in areas of vaccines and diagnostics. There are some big breakthroughs, like the adeno-associated virus, that could work very, very quickly. Now, I don't have an exact budget for what this would cost, but I'm quite sure it's very modest compared to the potential harm. The World Bank estimates that if we have a worldwide flu epidemic, global wealth will go down by over $3 trillion, and we'd have millions and millions of deaths. These investments offer significant benefits beyond just being ready for the epidemic. The primary health care, the R&D, those things would reduce global health equity and make the world more just as well as more safe. So I think this should absolutely be a priority. There's no need to panic. We don't have to hoard cans of spaghetti or go down into the basement. But we need to get going because time is not on our side. In fact, if there's one positive...
You see, and they know that, man. Okay, Job 14:5. Seeing the days are determined, the numbers are with the Lord. He has set the bounds that they cannot pass, man. And you heard him just sit out his mouth, man. They know this, man. They know that time is not on their side. That's why Revelation 12:12 say they're going to come down with great wrath, man. Okay? That's why 1 Peter 5:8, it said they walk as a roaring lion, seeking whom they may devour, man. Because they know that time is not on their side. They know this. And you heard it from out of the mouth of an elite.
Positive thing that can come out of the Ebola epidemic, it's that it can serve as an early warning, a wake-up call to get ready.
Yeah, it is time to get ready. Let's get this.
just recorded a large jump in coronavirus deaths and increased its official number of cases to more than 2,500. It was already Europe's worst hit country. This makeshift triage centre has been set up at a hospital in Brescia to keep suspected COVID-19 patients separate from others. The National Health Institute wants a new quarantine red zone set up near Bergamo. That would make 3 in Italy's north. As the UK updated its number of confirmed coronavirus cases to 51, signs of the outbreak's impact are starting to show there. This pub in Surrey closed for a deep clean after someone with the virus visited. But on the day the government unveiled its action plan, it's clear the UK is trying not to overreact.
Let me be absolutely clear that for the overwhelming majority of people who contract the virus, this will be a mild disease from which they will speedily and fully recover, as we've already seen. But I fully understand public concern.
For the moment, no blanket school closures, no major reorganisation of health services, no army involvement, no advisories against travel. Not unless things get significantly worse.
And the question is, at what time to implement which measures? If you do it too early, you end up with a lot of people having disruption, a lot of societal disruption, at a time you're not getting benefit.
Europe's big carriers are meeting at an aviation conference in Brussels. This chief executive thinks airlines are going to be hit hard by flight cancellations.
There are quite a few weak carriers throughout the world, and in particular Asia. So we are seeing that. In Europe, we see the same. France, over the last few months, you've seen 2 failures. So most definitely, I believe this will accelerate consolidation.
In France, where worried staff closed the Louvre Museum on Sunday and Monday, the government is to requisition face masks. There's been a run on them in shops, and prices have risen. We will distribute them to health professionals and to French people infected with the coronavirus, President Macron said on Twitter. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera.
There you go, man.
A large jump in...
Let's get this next one.
Emergency. At least 6 people have died in the United States from the virus. Now, the total global death toll is over 3,000, with new cases in Florida, Rhode Island, and New York. So for this, let's bring in RT correspondent Trinity Chavez, who is in New York. Trinity, officials are confirming the first case in Manhattan. What do we know?
The first case of the coronavirus confirmed here in New York. The patient, a woman in her 30s who contracted the virus after traveling abroad in Iran. And although it's the first confirmed case here in New York, officials say it's not the last. Today, concerns growing as the number of coronavirus cases across the country continues to rise. Seattle area officials now confirming 4 new patients have died from COVID-19, bringing the total number of deaths in the U.S. to 6. This as New York officials confirmed the first case of COVID-19 in New York City. The patient, a 39-year-old healthcare worker who was self-quarantined in her Manhattan apartment, contracting the virus after traveling to Iran.
There is no doubt that there will be more cases where we find people who test positive. We said early on, it wasn't a question of if, but when. This is New York. We're a gateway to the world. You see all these cases around the world, around the country. Of course, we're going to have it here.
Washington State currently has 18 cases, 14 of which are in King County, where a nursing facility is now suspected of being the site of America's first outbreak of the new coronavirus. Washington now in a state of emergency.
In addition, we're aware of a number of individuals associated with the long-term care facility who are reportedly ill with respiratory symptoms or pneumonia, and we're in the process of investigating this situation as an outbreak. We're in the beginning stages of our investigation, and new details and information will emerge over the next days and weeks.
And while Rhode Island and Florida are also reporting cases, the number of patients are growing in California and Illinois. Now at least 95 cases in the U.S. and more than 89,000 cases worldwide. Coronavirus cases now being reported in at least 60 countries, 8 of which were added to the list over the weekend, including Mexico and the Dominican Republic. And while President Trump Trump heightened warnings about travel to certain regions in Italy and South Korea, as well as a travel ban to Iran, economists predict that the travel industry, which generates about $5.7 trillion in revenue, could suffer its worst shock since 9/11. Meantime, major companies around the world are implementing travel bans and remote working policies in recent days. Companies including Twitter, Amazon, Google, Goldman Sachs, and Nike are all among the global businesses that are introducing extra measures as they try to protect their employees from COVID-19. Now, travelers entering the U.S. are facing new protocols. All this as U.S. officials are increasing the travel advisory for Italy and South Korea to a level 4, which is the highest level. Now, many wondering if officials are going to place a travel advisory on domestic travel as well to stop the spread of this deadly virus. Report.
You see, they make 5.7 trillion through these flights, man. Right? International and domestic flights, man. 5.7 trillion, man.
In New York, Trinity Chavez, RT.
Hey, this thing getting serious, man. This thing is getting serious, man.
Families need to be ready. On the East Coast in New York, a city of more than 8 million people ramped up its war against the coronavirus. Today, city employees were seen wiping down subway turnstiles, railings, and ticket machines. Today, new details on the second New Yorker to test positive, a man in his 50s who works in a Manhattan law firm.
He is the first patient to be seriously ill. And obviously we're very concerned because of what appears to be previous respiratory condition.
And you see, this is a power move to bring the RFID microchip, man. To keep these people tracked, man. To track everybody, man. This is a powerful move the elites is doing, man, with this coronavirus.
Which creates more danger.
One of his sons attends SAR Academy in the Bronx, which has now been closed. 16 states now report the presence of the virus, which originated in China just a few months ago, but has quickly spread around the globe. Nearly 91,000 worldwide have been infected so far, with more than 3,100 deaths. In Iran, this video appears to show dozens of bodies, believed to be coronavirus victims, scattered in a morgue in Tehran. And in Italy, the death toll has skyrocketed to 79. Back in Washington state, there's concern tonight the outbreak that began in this nursing home has spread to other states. Health officials in North Carolina now reporting their first possible case. They're waiting for the results of one last test. They say the patient not only traveled here to Washington state, but Nora visited this very nursing home before getting sick.
Jonathan, thank you.
You see, man, y'all think this is a game, man. This thing is serious. And if you ain't covered by your house while your house shy, you will be destroyed, man. The Lord ain't playing, man.
Coronavirus here in the U.S. now widening. Tonight, 9 people have now died in Washington state and that new case in New York City. Meantime, 2 new states reporting their first cases tonight, Georgia and North Carolina added to the map. And that second confirmed case...
You see that spread? All the way from China, man. This is just like the movie Resident Evil, man. Okay? This thing serious, man. That's why we gotta stay prayed up. That's gonna be the title of this lesson. Thanks to Elder Malcolm. Stay prayed up. Cause this thing is getting serious, man.
Here in a New York City suburb, a man who traveled into Manhattan to work. Tonight they're trying to retrace his steps. He is now in the hospital in serious condition. Schools linked to his children are closed, and now New York City is disinfecting the subways, among other steps. ABC's Whit Johnson tonight here in New York.
Tonight, New York City disinfecting thousands of trains, buses, and stations. The massive cleaning effort following the state's first suspected case of community spread of the virus. A man in his 50s from Westchester County now hospitalized in serious condition.
We're very concerned because of what appears to be previous respiratory condition, which creates more danger.
The man commuted by train to Grand Central Station, saying he also traveled recently to Israel and Miami. His family now under quarantine, and 2 schools closed connected to his son. It's New York's second case of COVID-19 after a healthcare worker tested positive following a trip to Iran. The number's growing. More than 110 cases across the U.S., at least 15 states affected. In Washington state, the death toll jumping to 9, where the elderly have been hit hardest at this nursing center. Our Kaylee Hartung is there.
For a second night in a row here at Life Care, we've seen emergency vehicles speed in, and now another person taken to the hospital.
Tonight, word of 7 more cases in the state, including 2 men in their 20s. That virus on the move. A new case in North Carolina traced back to that nursing home in Washington. Today, more than 120 evacuees from the Diamond Princess cruise ship released from quarantine at Lackland Air Force Base and bused to the airport.
Where are you heading to? We got us.
But only those who have been symptom-free for a full 14 days after local officials blasted the CDC for releasing a woman who later tested positive for COVID-19. Tonight, hundreds of American college students are making their way home from study abroad programs after last night's announcement.
There will be 100% screening, all direct flights at all airports across Italy and across South Korea.
But Chloe Froning, on her way home from Italy, had to connect through Amsterdam. She tells us she wasn't screened at all.
As of right now, we have not experienced any sort of extra check based on anything regarding the coronavirus.
Not even a temperature check before boarding her flight to Atlanta.
The guy asked me if I had been to Iran or China in the last 2 weeks. Interestingly, not Italy.
And so let's get to Whit Johnson tonight. He's now outside the hospital in New York where this patient is being treated. As you reported there, Whit, he's in serious condition. You also reported his family is in self-quarantine, his children as well, but this is actually widening tonight.
David, health officials are ordering anyone who recently came in contact with that patient to self-quarantine, and that includes members of his congregation at his synagogue through at least the end of the week. David?
All right, Whit Johnson tonight. Whit, thank you.
Wow.
Jonathan the coronavirus. Today we heard a dire warning. The CDC said what's happening now in the U.S. could turn out to be as serious as what we're seeing overseas. The virus has killed at least 9 people in this country. 126 cases are reported. That's across 16 states. That's all new today. And to give an idea of how this can spread, one case in North Carolina involves a person who was exposed while visiting Washington state and then later flew back home. The Seattle area remains a hotspot for the coronavirus. Jonathan Vigliotti reports from Kirkland, Washington tonight.
Tonight, officials say that a 54-year-old man who died last Wednesday might have exposed others before they knew he was infected. He lived at the same nursing facility linked to at least 5 other deaths in Washington state. Researchers believe the virus circulated undetected in the Seattle area for weeks. They fear there could be hundreds of undiagnosed cases.
I am concerned that this administration doesn't understand the seriousness of this and cannot downplay this right now. Communities need to be ready. Families need to be ready.
On the East Coast, in New York, a city of more than 8 million people ramped up its war against the coronavirus. Today, city employees were seen wiping down subway turnstiles, railings, and ticket machines. Today, new details on the second New Yorker to test positive, a man in his 50s who works at a Manhattan law firm.
He is the first patient to be seriously ill. And obviously we're very concerned because of what appears to be previous respiratory condition, which creates more danger.
One of his sons attends SAR Academy in the Bronx, which has now been closed. 16 states now report the presence of the virus, which originated in China just a few months ago but has quickly spread around the globe. Nearly 91,000 worldwide have been infected so far, with more than 3,100 deaths. In Iran, this video appears to show dozens of bodies believed to be coronavirus victims scattered in a morgue in Tehran. And in Italy, the death toll has skyrocketed to 79. Back in Washington state, there's concern tonight the outbreak that began in this nursing home has spread to other states.
This thing is getting serious, man. This thing is getting serious, man. Let's run this.
The death toll in the U.S. rising to 9, all of them in Washington state, as new cases appear in more parts of the country. We get more now from NBC's Miguel Almaguer.
Tonight in Washington state, the outbreak turning deadlier. At least 9 fatalities and more than 30 confirmed cases of the coronavirus. Emergency crews responding again today to the nursing home where several patients lived who later died after contracting the virus. Others are still hospitalized in critical condition. 26 firefighters who helped the sick are now off the job, many with flu-like symptoms.
This really impacts the community, right? Our ability to keep the community safe.
Across the country, in the nation's most populated city, New York officials confirm the coronavirus has infected another patient. Hospitalized in serious condition, doctors are now tracing his movements. The man, a lawyer in his 50s, who lives in Westchester and works in New York City, may have been exposed in the area. His family quarantined at home. 7 employees at his firm are being tested, and the schools his children attend are now being cleaned.
This is a crisis that will be with us, I think it's fair to say, not for weeks, but for months.
Fighting the virus and public fear, tonight there are more than 120 confirmed cases in a growing number of states.
Look at that. This is Resident Evil, man. Okay? Hey, this is Resident Evil, man. The T-virus, man. Yeah. This thing getting real, man. Thus saith the Lord.
In North Carolina, their first patient, the person exposed after visiting the nursing center in Washington state. Back near Seattle, a government building closed as a public school reopened today after one of its students tested positive for the virus, 4 others being monitored.
I feel like I'm sending my son to death, basically. I mean, it's just unsafe.
Washington's governor saying the public should consider avoiding large events and assemblies.
We are not making a request formally right now for events to be canceled, but people should be prepared for that possibility.
Tonight, growing concern over the unknown, a deadly virus quickly spreading as health officials urge caution while trying to ease fear.
Now you heard what he just said? Hey, don't be out here, man, in these streets, man. Okay? When you gotta go get something, man, go get it and get back home, man. Let me read a precept, man, to back up that. This Ecclesiasticus 32 and 11. And it reads, Ecclesiasticus 32 and 11. It reads, rise up betimes, and be not the last, but get thee home without delay. Hey, it say rise up betimes, and be not last. Go do what you gotta do, and don't be lagging around in these stores, man. Go get what you gotta get and get out, man. Rise up, Ecclesiastes 32 and 11. Rise up betimes, and be not the last. Don't be the last one, man. But get thee home without delay, man. Okay? Hey, the Apostle Els already said, man, you never know what can go down in these stores, man. Anything can happen. Somebody can have a pocket nuke. Somebody can come in there and spray the place down with guns. Or you could be around people with diseases, man. Like the coronavirus. And they quarantine the whole damn store, man.
Some of the patients who tested positive for the coronavirus are being treated in the hospital behind me. They're in critical condition, fighting for their lives. Meantime, local officials here in the Seattle area say they're working to buy a local hotel to house the sick, a clear indication they expect those numbers to also rise. Lester?
All right, Miguel Almaguer, thank you. We'll be right back with more breaking news on the coronavirus, including today's big move on the economy and the run on supplies. Now to that surprise from the Fed today, slashing interest rates to combat the economic toll from the coronavirus.
Now, you ain't heard nothing since they built this hospital, these 2 hospitals over there in China. You ain't heard nothing else, man. Why? Because they done filled it up with nothing but sick, dead people that's walking, man. This thing is serious, man.
President Trump saying the move is not enough and meeting with health officials. as his response faces continued scrutiny. Hallie Jackson is at the White House.
A surprise emergency move.
Federal Reserve announcing that it is cutting interest rates.
The Fed, hoping to counter the coronavirus effect on the economy, slashing rates 0.5 point to boost markets. But investors found little comfort. The Dow still closing down nearly 800 points.
It's a historic day here on Wall Street.
It's the first time the Fed has taken this kind of step since the 2008 financial crash.
Finally. Do it more. Do it a little bit more. The Fed rate is too high.
And this guy talking about making America great again, keeping America great. Man, this place is done, man. Isaiah 47:1, man, it's done. But he telling me how to keep America great. America ain't great. You got a retail apocalypse going on, man. 19,000 businesses and shut down, man. But it's supposed to be great. Hundreds of thousands of people are out of work, man.
It's very simple. It's too high.
President Trump visiting the National Institutes of Health today.
At least in the preliminary safety.
He's now hinting Japan might be the next country hit with new travel restrictions. And he's pledging to help the financially vulnerable.
For patients who don't have insurance, Mr. President, what should happen? Will your administration help?
We're looking at that whole situation. There are many people without insurance, and we're looking at that situation for those people.
Aid to help hospitals care for the uninsured is expected to be part of an emergency package that lawmakers have almost finalized. Set to spend about $7.5 billion on things like testing and vaccine development, production of emergency supplies, and helping states fight the virus. Vice President Pence on Capitol Hill with top experts briefing senators about the administration response.
The biggest question, testing. When and where? They could not answer how soon people would be able to get the tests.
I was assured they're going to get out the door. Bottom line is it seems to be that the testing element is going to get more robust by the end of the week.
And late tonight, the vice president announced the CDC will issue new guidance making it clear any American can be tested for coronavirus subject to doctor's orders, and that all federal agencies will be directed to review their own internal travel policies. Lester.
All right, Hallie Jackson at the White House tonight. Thank you. And with cases of the coronavirus now popping up all across the country, we want to take a closer look at what's being done to prepare for the virus. Officials, as you keep hearing, urging caution over panic. Let's get more from Tom Costello.
It's only one way to prepare for the virus, man. Okay? It's only one way to prepare, man. Psalm 91 say, be covered in the shadow of the Almighty, man. That's the only way.
On this Super Tuesday, it's not just politics on the minds of some voters.
We will have hand sanitizers. We will have wipes.
Crowds and the coronavirus, too.
We have lost a few people that were hired to be election clerks at our vote centers that were just a little bit nervous about being around the public.
New York crews out cleaning buses, trains, and stations after 2 confirmed cases there. The government says it shipped 75,000 test kits to labs across the country. Though skepticism tonight, those labs will be able to process nearly 1 million tests this week, as the FDA chief promised. As more labs test more samples, experts expect the number of confirmed coronavirus cases to rise nationwide. With airlines cutting back travel to Asia and parts of Europe, the U.S. Travel Association predicts a 6% drop in international travelers to the U.S. over the next 3 months. Both Facebook and Twitter pulling out of the South by Southwest conference in Austin. Meanwhile, health experts across the country are suggesting all of us cut back on handshakes, on casual hugs, and kisses. Hand sanitizers in churches now as priests urge parishioners to refrain from shaking hands or drinking from the same chalice.
We're not making monumental changes to things. It's just a few kind of tweaking it to be aware.
In Denver, someone stole protective masks meant for doctors, nurses, and patients at National Jewish Health. The hospital is now guarding its remaining supply and awaiting another delivery.
We've sequestered our masks that are around campus so that only staff have access to these masks.
With supplies running low, the World Health Organization says medical supply hoarding is now a problem as the virus and fear spread. Tom Costello, NBC News, Washington.
And as we continue tonight, the coronavirus's surprising impact on children. We're back now with a new warning from the World Health Organization this evening. The death rate from the coronavirus is rising, at least among known cases, as cases rapidly spread around the world. Our Richard Engel is in London.
It's spreading, and it may be twice as deadly as previous estimates. In South Korea, they're now screening and cleaning on a wide scale. In Iran, where dozens of government officials have been reported sick, prisoners are being furloughed. And Italy, 79 people now dead, all over the age of 63. Tonight, the World Health Organization in Geneva estimates the mortality rate has increased from around 2% to 3.4%.
COVID-19 is a new virus to which no one has immunity.
Some reassurance from America's top virus expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who told Congress most healthy people get better.
About 80% of individuals who get infected do really quite well without any specific intervention. Namely, they spontaneously recover.
More from Dr. Fauci on NBC last night.
Is that what this is going to become? Is this going to become a new seasonal thing that we're just going to have to deal with?
I get asked that question constantly, and the answer is we do not know. The way it's acting, the facility with which it transmits from person to person, makes me believe that it's not going to be a one-off. It's not going to be this season. When the season is over, we're done.
Richard Engel, NBC News, London.
All right, let me bring in our chief medical correspondent, Dr. John.
Yeah, this thing getting serious, man. This thing is getting serious. We've been telling you, man, this thing getting serious, man. They start with the apostles and elders, man. They've been telling you this thing is serious, man. So let's get these precepts, which I only got a couple. This is Deuteronomy 28. Oh, let me read this first. Amos chapter 3 and 1. It reads, "Hear this word that the Lord Yahweh hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, O sons of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, You only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities." So the Lord is putting these curses on 2/3 of Negro, Latinos, and Native Americans, man. Okay? What did he say? He created the world for our sakes, man. Knowing that he created the world for our sakes, wherever Jake is scattered at, man, he's going to bring judgment to you. Let's read this. Zephaniah chapter 3 and 5 reads, "The just Yahweh is in the midst thereof. He will not do iniquity. Every morning doeth he bring his judgment to light. He faileth not, but the unjust knoweth no shame." The Lord is judging you Negro, Latino, Native Americans, man. He doesn't care about these other nations. And if they die in the making, hey, they just casualties of war, man. Okay? This Deuteronomy 28 and 61, it reads, "Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will Yahweh bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of Yahweh thy power." So, all the plagues that was not written in this book is going to destroy 2/3 of Israel, man. Okay? It's going to destroy 2/3 of Israel, man. This is just facts. It's just facts, man. This is Psalms 91. Let's read this. Hey, because Proverbs 18 and 10 say what? The name of the Lord is a strong tower. Matter of fact, let's read that. Let's read that. It's Proverbs 18 and 10. And it reads, the name of the Lord Yahweh is a strong tower. The righteous run into it and is safe. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. Let's get the precept. Psalms 18 and 2. It reads, Yahweh is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer, my power, my strength in whom I will trust, my buckler and the horn of my salvation and my high tower. Okay, let's get this. Psalms 124 and 8. It reads, our help is in the name of the Lord Yahweh, who made heaven and earth. So, our help is in the name of the Lord, man. Okay? Our help is in the name of the Lord. And if you not covered in the shadow of the Almighty, you will be put to death, man. It's Psalm 91 and 1. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my power, in Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. What we got going on right now? A noisome pestilence, man. This coronavirus. He shall cover thee with His feathers, and under His wings shall thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that fly by day. Terror by night is all these different plagues and diseases that's going to come upon the earth. The arrows that fly by day is the intercontinental ballistic missiles. Nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness. This coronavirus, it's a pestilence that's walking in darkness. You can't see it. But guess what? People dropping like flies. Nor for the destruction that waketh at noonday. Wait till Jacob's trouble really hit. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand. And it's happening now, man. But it shall not come nigh thee. Hey, if you're a man of the Lord, it's not going to come to you. Only with thine eyes shall thou behold and see the reward of the wicked. 2/3 of Israel is wicked. The heathen nations is wicked. And they dropping like flies, man. Because thou hast made the Lord Yahweh, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwellings. Okay? And you got to believe this, man. You got to believe this. It's a Lord witness edifying. Got to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh. Bahashem Yahweh Shah. Bahashem Rekah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, who teach well. And a sincere salutation to all the ark and pushing this truth and believing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth that tell you we're all waking up the hopeful elect. Shalom to the Akwa who are listening and learning. The few sisters who are listening and learning. Ecclesiasticus 32 and 11. Rise up betimes, and be not the last, but get thee home without delay. Go into these go do what you gotta do. You gotta go shopping, you gotta get some food. Whatever you gotta do, go get it and get home, man. Get your ass out of these places, man. Okay? Rise up betimes, and be not the last, but get thee home without delay, man. Don't be wasting your time going to these places. You women want to go on every aisle in the grocery store, man. You want to go shopping. You want to go on every aisle in the clothes store, man. Go get what you're going to get and get out, man.
In late 2019, a new strain of coronavirus was detected in humans. Within weeks, this novel virus spread. The spread closed down an airport, quarantined cruise ships, and damaged the world economy.
And the outbreak is also sparking fears on Wall Street, the Dow plunging more than 1,000 points on Monday.
We now know there are confirmed cases in 35 countries.
By February 25th, 2020, over 80,000 people had been affected, and over 2,700 people had died. And now we're on the brink of a pandemic. Can the viral disease COVID-19 be stopped? Viruses are the most abundant biological entity on Earth, and most of them are at least 33,000 times smaller than a pea. They're simple little things, made of genetic material cased in a protein shell, and capable of survival only when inside another living cell. But being microscopic parasites doesn't stop them from doing some major damage. Ebola, AIDS, the flu, and of course coronavirus disease 2019 are all caused by viruses. You see, when a virus enters a living cell, it replicates, sometimes kills the cell, and spreads. Your immune system attempts to protect your body, and in many cases succeeds. But sometimes the virus wins, overpowering your immune system, which can lead to illness and sometimes even death. So, how do we stop a new virus? Well, the first two steps are crucial: detection and containment. Detection can be extremely difficult when you're dealing with a new virus. That's because symptoms often resemble other diseases.
A lot of these are flu-like illnesses, so the answer depends partly on whether the clinician, using clinical judgment, feels there's something a little bit different.
Once doctors determine that they're dealing with something new, the next step is uncovering the virus's gene sequence. This is key. The gene sequence is used to create detection test kits, so healthcare professionals can make sure the patients actually have a specific virus, instead of, say, the common flu. But finding that sequence can take time. When SARS broke out in 2003, it took more than 4 months. Scientists have sped up the process, and in the case of the 2019 novel coronavirus, the sequence was released about 1 week after the initial announcement, followed a few weeks later by a test kit. Pumping thousands of these out quickly isn't easy, and even when kits are available, using them can come with complications. Usually, these tests rely on lab processing, which takes precious time. And in the case of the COVID-19 outbreak, some of the kits sent to the US didn't work the way they were expected to, and gave inconclusive results instead of a positive or a negative. But this is only the beginning. After detection, containment is vital. Once in human populations, viruses can spread quickly, and different viruses spread, well, differently. HIV, for example, travels in certain body fluids like blood and semen. Zika spreads via mosquito bites. And viral diseases like influenza and COVID-19, they transmit through human respiratory droplets, mainly in the form of spray from coughs and sneezes. Which explains why canceling large events, quarantining cities, and isolating and treating individuals who might be infected have been so important. With COVID-19, quarantines may have limited the spread of the disease, but they didn't stop it. In part, because the virus may not show symptoms for up to 14 days after infection, even though it may still be transmissible in that time. And, crucially, cities didn't lock down until over 3 weeks after the first detection. In fact, the mayor of Wuhan stated that over 5 million people had left the city during that window. So, while COVID-19 could go the way of the 2003 SARS outbreak and disappear, experts worry that this is unlikely, which leads us to the last two lines of defense: medications and vaccinations. Multiple groups are developing vaccinations that could highly limit COVID-19, if not stop it altogether. And the World Health Organization is testing drugs that fight HIV and Ebola as well.
Obviously, it takes time, and it takes time to scale up vaccine production. Even once you have a suitable vaccine candidate, that scale up and deployment is a slower process.
Vaccines have to go through strict testing and approval processes, which could take months. And viruses are notorious for changing and adapting, making it hard to nail down a precise vaccine. Case in point, researchers were still developing vaccines for the Zika virus in 2019, years after it last wreaked havoc in 2016. So while scientists are trying to stay ahead of COVID-19, develop a vaccine, and get it through those regulations, a pandemic could break out.
It could chug along perhaps eventually becoming more like the seasonal flu or more like coronavirus as we see in animal species. How nasty that would be, really we can't say at this point.
This might sound scary, but there is no need to panic. Modern technology and further research has us much better prepared than during past outbreaks. And if people stay vigilant, quarantine when told, and get the correct treatment, COVID-19 could still be stopped.
Yeah, so the Lord witness is edifying. Gotta give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, Bahashim Rekah Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of great millstone who rule well, who teach well. And a sincere salutation to all the Akim, pushing this truth and believing this truth throughout the four winds of the earth, the entire world, waking up the hope of the elect. And shalom to the Akwafu who are listening and learning. The few sisters who are listening and learning. Hey, Lord, within us edifying, man, because this thing is getting serious. This thing is getting serious, man. Hey, so stay prayed up. Stay prayed up, man. Because if you don't have the covenant of the Lord and Savior, Yahweh, Bahashim Yahushua, you're going to die a grievous death. So with that, hey, Ecclesiasticus 32:11, man. Okay, rise up, be times, and be not the last. Okay? And get home without delay, man. Shalom.